Hey everybody, welcome to a special live stream with us, a product feature announcement. It's something we've been working on for a really long time, so we're glad that you can join us. We're going to do a full walkthrough. The normal crew is here if you're familiar with our podcast, the Ask a Cycling Coach podcast that we do every week. Myself, Jonathan Lee, our head coach, Chad Timmerman.
Hi, everybody.
And our CEO, Nate Pearson.
Hello.
I'm going to be talking less than normal this time.
Fantastic. Bye, Chad. Just kidding. Yeah.
Because in this case, Nate is going to be really kind of driving things. We're going to take a look at the features that we've just released today. You can log into your TrainerRoad account. You can watch along with us right now. We're going to walk you through and share our screen so then you can see what we're looking at. But basically, we're going to get behind why we did all of these things and then how to use them to understand how you're getting faster. Because the whole impetus behind this whole thing, right, was how to get faster. So we'll end up sharing our screen here in a bit. But Nate, if you want to kick it off and explain some things first.
Yeah, we're also team building during this live stream. As if Jonathan is
orange juice for
pure
me.
Orange juice for Jonathan. I'm a mix and Chad's straight.
So things might get a little casual here. We'll see.
The F-bomb slips. We're sorry. Okay, so the idea behind this is before TrainerRoad started, I actually tried to build an analytics platform. I don't know if you guys even know that.
No.
I had this desktop analytics platform pretty well built, and then I switched over to starting the indoor training stuff because I thought that was a bigger benefit to start with and more unique.
Yeah.
So I've wanted to do this for such a long time, but one thing that you talk about when you build a business is you got to focus on your core. So we were just trying to make sure that our core was stable and great and keep improving that. But now we're to a size where we can do two things at once. So now we have I describe it as like legs for TrainerRoad. And there's the performance training, which is TrainerRoad, like the one you're used to with doing workouts. And now we have performance analytics, and that's coming out now. And that's our second leg. There is a third leg planned, but it's not announced today. But anyways, we're going to go over that second leg. Why we should use it. We all did a time trial last night, hill climb time trial. If you're not used to the podcast, you're probably going to be, well, it'll still be entertaining, but you won't realize why we hate each other so much. So let's just get right into it. And also, this is live on everyone's site page today. So if you log into TrainerRoad, you can look at your own stuff while we're doing this.
Exactly.
First, we redesigned the career page, and we wanted it to be, this is like your landing page, super simple. We reduced the number of stats. When we first had some stats up there, it was like total number of hours trained or days and stuff, like total number of kilojoules, which is fun to see you've burned like 45,000 Big Macs over 8 years, but it's not useful.
Not very useful.
I mean, there were times we actually sent out like basically polls throughout the whole company. There are a lot of cyclists and triathletes that work here, right? And we were voting on those things. And then if we did vote, we justified that. And we had to kind of say why it made us faster. And then we all kind of came to the conclusion, yeah, that's neat, but it doesn't make you faster.
Once you think about it, everyone's pretty much in agreement. Like, yes, you do not need your total number of days trained. Like, it's cool, but not needed. Anyway, so up top, we do have what you do need is your FTP, right? That's what you need, your weight. And if you hover over it, you see it in the opposite number. I always think like, what's my weight in kilograms? So I can just do that rather than have to Google it and change it. And then you hover over your power to weight and you see that. The next thing we did is we have a quick link to your training plan if you're on a training plan. If you're not, then it won't show this here. And the thing that we always said is what I want to see is my last ride. Because you get in your car after a race or after a workout and you want to analyze it, the very first thing you want to see is your last ride.
Oh, yeah.
The other thing you want to see is your next ride, right? So if you're on a plan, that's all we show up here. And this is a quick way to be able to either go to your next ride, which actually we've redone a lot of the site. If you haven't been there for a while, a lot of it is different and it's way, way faster too. If you notice that change was darn near instant. So we'll dive into this last ride and the TT and everything that we did. But before that, I want to cover the training stress chart and personal records.
Awesome.
So training stress, this is a visual representation of how much training stress I've done over the last year. And there's a couple things to see about this. One is they're grouped by weeks. We're showing TrainerRoad and other being mainly outside rides. together. So those are different colors. So you can see here, this was a week that was mostly TrainerRoad and then a little bit of outside riding, where this last week was mostly all outside rides. I really like this because it's a simple way to see like how consistent I've been. One thing is we can change it to up to 4 years at a time. And if you look at my career here, you can easily see I took a year off. But this gray line is your trending 6 weeks average. And that's a good showing of like how much chronic stress you've had. And if you look at these,
it's pretty telling.
These peaks, right? Yeah, like look at this. So in 2016, I give this peak and then I go down. And then I give a peak and then I go down. But each peak is slightly higher. So this peak, this peak, this peak, this peak, this peak, you can draw a line. Like Chad, have you seen that before? Like, is that what you would expect?
Yeah. As the stress goes up, assuming you're adapting to it and you're not overdoing it, that's exactly what you should see. So, I mean, when we look at this 6-week average, we're basically that's the equivalent of fitness. So it's how much stress your body can tolerate at that moment.
And I think too, what each one of those years, I probably overreached a little too much and then got kind of discouraged and started over again.
Yeah.
I bet you I would have been, like consistency is key, right? Like
it's everything.
If I would have been, I didn't go so hard, and you'll see it like before all these peaks, I have these like really big weeks, and then it starts to go down. I have, there's a huge week, and then I start to go down. Look at this big week, I start to go down. Look at this big week, went down.
Yeah,
big
and
week.
it's a tough trap not to fall into. I mean, you're feeling good. You're all your workouts are going well. It's kind of a common response.
Yeah, that's exactly it, and it's usually too tied, but with like a big outside race or something like that.
That you're like building toward or something else like that. Something that's interesting with this, I like being able to see a simplified graph of my training stress at such a long time frame, because that's where you can actually see, like in this case, you can see, okay, it's building upon itself slowly but surely, but I do have these smaller trends within that. And it gets more complex when you have a graph that's trying to do too many things at once, but this one just tries to do one thing very well.
Distills it down to
really
what's
helpful.
Really useful.
Yeah. Another thing on this graph are the diamonds. Those are FTP changes. So if you mouse over them, you can see what your last FTP was, what your new FTP was, and the change. And another thing you can look at this is the relationship between your workouts, both TrainerRoad and outside, and the total amount of training stress compared to FTP changes. And you notice that like when I have these dips, obviously my FTP goes down 12%. But then when I get on it, it goes up, right?
Yeah.
And
you can see that most of your FTP changes coincide with when your stress is ramping gradually, properly, up, and that's when you start to see those improvements.
Yeah, when you're not outpacing your ability to adapt, you're actually managing it effectively.
Exactly.
Something I want to mention really quick here, and I'm sure you'll get to this, but the cool thing about this too is that like we actually, we have people use these things and we like get feedback and watch what they do. And analytics can be overwhelming to a lot of people. That's why we tried to make it super simple. But then you can see actually on Nate's training stress chart there, you can see where it says training stress help. And you'll see those little tool tips all over the place with a little question mark. And in many cases, they'll bring up like a video, and you can see and basically get a walkthrough actually from Coach Chad. You'll get a walkthrough on how to use them, which is super helpful, because one thing that kind of frustrates me that I see a lot with like I should say like a lot of the training elite, in the cycling and triathlon world, is that they get so deep into the weeds as far as the nomenclature they use and how they describe things that it can be really off-putting for somebody that doesn't understand it, and it's kind of hard to get into it.
Well, too, I think the three of us understand a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But it's just like, why? Like,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for people that are coming into this that have never analyzed their power really before, you might use it for your workouts, but you haven't looked into the larger picture with that. I feel like, this was definitely one of our goals, is to make it so that you can understand why and how you're getting faster, not just full trust on the front side of things, but also then understand on the other side.
And as we get further into this, if you do think we forgot something, let us know, and we'll tell you either why we didn't do it or put it on the roadmap to do it.
You can put that in the comments on Facebook or YouTube.
Yeah. Cool. Another thing that I've been using this for is I've had a goal to hit probably since November, at least 400 TSS a week, because what I'm trying to do is beat you guys in the 40K TT.
Yes.
And looking at my past results, 400 was kind of an upper limit for me. So let me go back to 4 years. Kind of around here, you see the 6 weeks average, 337, 355, 360. I peaked at 400. Here, peaked at 430. So I said, well, let's just try to hit 400, but be consistent.
Yeah.
Don't peak up higher than that. So if we drill back in November, I started to do it. And I actually, again, I went a little too high. And now I have an upper limit of about 700. And I have to make sure that if we're going to have this big race or something, I have to rest a little bit more before or after, or I know I'm going to dive down.
Yeah.
And actually, it's like I become less fit by having the big weeks. Right? Chad, do you see that?
Just beat yourself down.
With athletes? Do you see people do that?
Plenty. I mean, it's like we're talking. It's really tempting to ride that wave of good fitness and think, oh, I can handle more. I've been handling this. I can certainly handle more until you reach that breaking point. And it's unfortunate that people have to reach that breaking point as frequently as you do, and you're far from alone in that respect.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's kind of funny. Like whenever I'm in that position, I'll log on to Bike Reg or something else like that. And I'm like, events. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's just
right.
like an addiction, right? Like
How many can
I'm
I
running
do?
high right now. I'm running hot. Gotta find events to do. But it can totally bite you. Yeah, absolutely. It can totally bite you.
So if you look at here on the mouse over, you see there's 3 things. The TSS, when I have the indoor and outdoor, the 6-week average, and the 6-week daily average. So if you look at the 6 weeks average, that's like how much TSS I'm doing every week. And then the 6 weeks daily average, that's like how much I'm doing on average every day.
Yes.
So for that week, or for that, it was like 61 TSS every week. And then
Per day.
400. Yeah, every day. Sorry. So I've been hitting my goal of, on average, going over 400.
Right.
Which is good.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I'm proud of that.
Yeah, so when we're trying to determine how high we can ramp that and still, maybe not continue to ramp it even higher and higher, but actually continue to perform well.
Yep.
So it's going up, but the performances are still there. Says you can probably handle a little more stress. And if you keep it incremental and you don't overdo it and jump from I'm looking at a 500 TSS week, and then he jumps to an 833 TS week, and then plummets to a 230 training stress week.
Yeah.
That's basically how it works.
I got sick.
Yeah.
You pushed your body just a little too a lot too hard, probably.
Training camp in the rain and just tired.
Yeah.
Travel.
Yeah, on top of all the stress that you've accumulated up to that point.
We get so many questions on the podcast of people asking, should I taper or should I not taper? Or how do I adjust my training plan? Or what are the implications of doing this outdoor ride that I really want to do, or this big group ride, or this race on my training plan? And that's the cool thing with this, is with enough data, and some trending analysis, you can start to understand how you react uniquely to that. Because that's really the main thing that we come down to, is you have to learn how your body reacts. Take a conservative approach, but then always look into things. And now you really can look into it, and you can understand how that taper affected you, or how adding on that extra stuff affects you, because you can see it over that timeline.
On that vein, you've probably seen it as we're watching this, but there's this table below that shows actually the workouts that make up each week. So let me go to this big week here in January, and you can see here that here are the workouts. Here's the amount of training stress each day that I did for that week.
Those are big days.
And the green dots mean they're outside rides. And I can also click on this, and I go right into it. So I did Right Peak, which is a crazy, crazy workout. And I did a whole bunch of PRs. And we're going to get into those more. But I have a PRs for all time, for my cross season, and for my mountain bike season. Did Baxter, one of my favorites. Mount Deborah, which is not easy either. And then I have those training camps. And from here, I can link right into the rides, which we're not going to do yet, but you can come back to it. If I want to look at the next week, you can see my notes, which I think notes are underused by people. Yes. But it says, I've been sick for the last 2 days.
Are.
Right? Feeling better, and that was on a Friday. I did a Saturday. Too much, too soon. This is the kind of things that I look back at now.
Yeah.
And I know how the notes are so helpful, because if you don't put down how you felt, saying that this ride was too much too soon. Next time that I'm sick, you know what? 1 week after you're sick, don't do Carson plus 2. That's way too hard.
But when you're looking at this trend analysis and you're seeing things go up and then suddenly they tank, if you can dive back into those notes and see, certain comments. Felt great today, or was starting to get sick. Some things, we can't just look at the objective data. We have to look at a lot of the subjective stuff, tie it together, and see a fuller picture of what was actually going on at that moment in time.
Yep. And this time, here where I had my best FTP increase, I'd like to see what led up to that best FTP increase of my height of 345. And when I look in here, I really like this view is because it shows you really easily, like I had darn near 4 or 5 weeks at a time where I was super consistent, right? These 3 weeks, besides that day, it was like only on Fridays I would take the day off. And I had good weekends. The other interesting thing, I know I'm a trainer roadie through and through, but these are TrainerRoad workouts, right? And before my big FTP increase, I had a whole bunch of inside workouts.
Super consistent.
And then before my FTP decrease, I had a whole bunch of outside rides. Similar training stress. Right, but the structure's different, the quality's different.
And you were and you were putting up PRs, you were getting, and we'll get into that in a bit. But like, it's not just that it affects the graph, but this graph really does indicate performance, right? You know, so it's that when you're seeing that improvement, you actually saw improvement in performance.
And those outdoor rides typically aren't as tightly regulated. I mean, you can get away. Well, you just get roped into the moment, and you know you hit certain things harder than you probably should. Don't back off as well as you should, but it doesn't have that same high level of structure as the indoor stuff does. And
you can see I had indoor PRs, which is actually hard to do. Normally you get all your PRs outside, right? So to get indoor PRs, that's a good sign that you're doing things right. But then when we go to the Audi team camps that I did, I also got outside PRs, right? So the training that I did inside definitely got me like all-time power PRs for outside, which is super fun, right? That's some of the best. I personally think that's the best feedback in training. We just did the TT last night, and although it was a good conditions day, I don't think any of us got power PRs, and I feel worse not getting. I would have rather had power PRs and had it be a bad conditions day and have a slower time than to have a great time and have bad power numbers.
I really want to hit that point home, but I think I want to wait until we talk about PRs because that's a really important point that a lot of people miss.
Yeah. Focus on the performance, or focus on the physiological improvement. The actual improvements in your capabilities, not just one day's performance.
Yeah, absolutely.
A couple other things to note is you can edit your FTP history here pretty easily. So if you click on that button, you can come in here and put in new FTPs if you forgot one. If you have something in here that's wrong, you can delete it. It's really quick to do. When we import your data, I should probably cover that too. All you have to do is sync Strava and or Garmin Connect, and we'll pull in all your history. Now with Garmin Connect, we only pull in the last 30 days of your rides, but we'll go everything forward, and that is a limitation of Garmin. Strava, though, if you pair that, we'll pull in all of your old rides. You can also, you have like a zip file, you can import rides. So on the left side, if you go to past rides and click this import rides button, you can drop Fit, TCX, GPX, PWX, or zip files, and then we'll process those workouts, and they'll show up. Past rides page has also been updated. I forgot to show this, but another thing that happens is if you do a ride and you don't have a power meter, there'll be a little notification here that says, you've done this ride without a power meter, let's estimate your training stress. There's 2 ways to do it. We could do it with heart rate, although we honestly, heart rate's not as good, and a lot of times you still don't have a heart rate monitor. We're doing it based on just RPE. So you tell us, we know the duration of it, and you tell us how hard you are working out. And we found that ties really well, or close enough to training stress to get it so that this chart is accurate. Because you could have, I don't know, all your mountain bike rides might not have training stress. So
right now, I've built up 2 new mountain bikes, and I don't have power meters for them yet. So I am very much using this feature pretty regularly, to estimate it.
Cool. Is there anything else you guys want to mention about this page?
One thing that I think maybe people don't know, just a simple thing, is you can, when you hover over that graph, you can click on any of those weeks. I know you've seen Nate doing that, but it's really helpful just to be able to click and then see your rides that compose that little bar of training stress that you see.
So you can dive into that week, and then you can also dive into each individual workout from there.
Yeah, it's really helpful. And the other thing is, if you go to the table below and you actually hover over that table, you'll see that when you do that, you see that it highlights also up on that chart. So it's like simple things like that I feel like make a chart a little easier to navigate and easier to understand.
And this works on mobile really well too.
Yeah, it does, which is kind of crazy because you wouldn't think that it would with so many layers of touch and all that stuff needing to go into it, but it does.
Okay.
That's all I've got on it.
Ready for personal records?
Yep.
Yeah. Definitely.
Okay. I had some things already said in here. I'm going to clear these out. Okay. Personal records. this is what it's going to look like. I have everything blank right now for people who are just coming in.
Okay.
There's a problem with our old personal records. There's two problems. One is bucketing size. So before we had it where it was just like 1 minute, 2 minute, 5 minute, 10, 20, whatever, 30, stuff like that. But there's always be like those climbs that you do, and it would be a 4 minute and 50 second climb. Yeah. Right? And you would go so hard on that, it wouldn't beat your 2 or 3 minute power PR, but it also wouldn't beat your 5 minute power PR.
Yep.
And it would be frustrating because you had a better performance, but you couldn't visualize it.
Yes.
You didn't get the feedback.
Yes.
So what we've done is put per second PRs up until I think 5 minutes, and then the buckets go to like 2 seconds, and they go very small out till then. But you can really get a clear picture of all your PRs. The next thing we've done is, what'd you say, Chad?
At 5 minute changes to 5 second buckets.
Okay.
Yeah.
The other thing that we did is created the idea of seasons. And this is for grouping PRs. Most times you'll see on other training software that they'll do the seasons at like 1 year at a time, like all of 2018, all of 2017, or the last 6 weeks.
Right.
Both, I don't think, or all time. That's it. All times sort of effective, but when you get to be as old as Chad, like all his all times were like when you were like 34. Right?
Yeah.
You probably will never touch those again in your life.
Nothing I can usefully compare to what I'm doing today.
Right.
So then, and the frustrating thing is then you're just relegated to basically thinking,
I'm never going to be that good again.
Exactly.
Right.
It's frustrating.
Yeah. But you can't though track your progress in that season.
Yeah.
So that
and it's not just age. Like if you've had a life change, it doesn't allow you to train as much. Everything else like that, it doesn't. And not that PRs are the sole quantifier for like your performance or something else. They're a good indicator, but it's nice to be able to know that you still are improving with relativity to what you should be doing, and if you're in a position where life has changed and you're not able to train like you used to be able to, you should still be getting PRs and understanding how your performance is improving. You shouldn't just be left in the dark.
For sure.
Yeah.
And the other problem is that when you do it by just a year, normally, like no one's training season, unless you're like people who are not racers, they start January 1st, right?
Yeah.
People who are like the 24-hour fitness, the first 2 weeks of January.
Right.
Everyone else, their seasons don't start on January 1st. So what we want to do is
they change every year.
Exactly, like every year.
And they overlap.
Yes.
And they overlap.
Seasons,
Yep. So the idea of this is that when I start a new season, like fitness is cyclical, right? So you peak for a race, and then so I take unplanned time off, but you should probably take planned time off. You get a little less fit, and maybe then you start again in November or something to start training again.
Yep.
What you want to see is that you're higher than the year before, but you might not, for all of November and December, be getting any PRs. You might not get more PRs until October of the next year, right?
Yeah.
And it's very frustrating.
I usually end up peaking sometime around mid to late summer because that's usually when I pick like my goal events, right? So basically then if in a prior world, I would just stay in the dark until I got to those times. And that's the only spot where I would have a chance in PR territory again. It's frustrating.
So if you, on this page, the thing you want to do first is create seasons. So I've created seasons for each year still, just because the years are also fun. But I did it also for cross season 2016, cross season 2017, mountain bike 2016, mountain bike 2017, and mountain bike 2018. And you can see that starts right after Christmas. That's when I like to do it. And the cool thing is when you define these seasons, like mountain bike 2018, that's like it's a refresh of your PRs. So every time for that mountain bike season, past your first ride, you get a new PR in that season, it's going to show up on your ride.
Yes.
So let's go back to December. Let's go back to that week.
Which week is that?
Right after the week of Christmas of 2017.
Perfect.
So you can see here, I started training, and Antelope for that season, I got some PRs. I got 331 PRs, and you're going to get a lot more PRs now, but during that season. And what the nice thing is I can see that during that block of time, I want to keep improving because from December to the end of September, whatever I chose, I want to keep seeing my power increasing.
Yep.
And if I don't see those, something's wrong. I want to address it.
Yep, absolutely.
Let's go back to personal records.
Okay.
And now I can, once I'm in here, I can compare seasons against each other. So first I'm going to do cyclocross 2016 to look at some historic data versus cyclocross 2017. And here you can see there's this big spike. These lines are very close. This is another problem with other PR charts is that your power output, that's like your sprint power output, is this huge scale, and what it does is it shrinks down everything else down here.
Yeah.
So
if you're like an endurance athlete or like a triathlete or anything else like that, you're always frustrated because that sprint kind of throws everything off.
Not even just a triathlete, like any racer, right?
Yeah. If you're curious about anything that lasts, longer than just a short bit.
Yeah, and it makes it look like, so having this out to 7.5 hours, that also squeezes down the sprint. So I can't see that either.
Yeah.
So what we did is we created these different views. So if I click on endurance, it does 1 minute to 7 hours. And now the data makes sense, and I can actually see things and get insights from it.
Yep.
So if we look at this data, and Chad, what I see in this data is as I hover this, I can see the difference between let's say I'll go over 10-minute power. And I can see the difference between my 2016 best PRs for cyclocross season towards my 2017 best PRs. And for 10-minute power, I had a 70-watt increase, which is great.
Substantial,
right?
Yeah.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
But if I look here between 2 minutes to 4 minutes, it's 30 watts. And so there's on either side of those, there's these big openings where I've done a really good increase, and then in between I've done a very small increase.
Right.
And I think that's based on the kind of training plan I picked.
Sure.
Because during this, I remember we talked about this, is I abandoned cross plan to start doing sweet spot based work for our time trial.
Yeah.
And doesn't that make sense that maybe I get really good at 10-minute intervals?
Makes perfect sense, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and then you can go back and pour over this stuff and decide, did that limit my race outcomes? Was I having a hard time hanging in when the hard punches would come on the cross races because I had shifted into sweet spot training and was neglecting my anaerobic power?
Yes. So I totally, in cross racing, you don't really need 10-minute sustained power.
Not so much.
Not so much, right? You do, but you don't. It would really be better if I would have had some 2-minute punch, some 3-minute punch.
The prioritization changes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and of course that's depending on the course and the type of racing you're doing and everything else. But that's the cool thing is you can look at it just with a little bit more, more granularity here, and you can actually see and understand. You can get more specific for the exact duration that you really care about.
Do I like how my race went? No, not really. I'm going to go back and look. What cost me? Where was I suffering? Where was I not riding to not expressing the sort of fitness that I need to express to be able to excel in a race of this nature?
And I knew this. I was looking. This was we had this tool internally, and I was looking at this, and I had to make it's all balances, right? So I made the conscious decision I really want to. I'm thinking about next June, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to start now on that longer effort things.
You reprioritize.
Yeah, exactly. And my cross skills were also such a huge. They sucked so bad. Yeah,
limitation.
That even if I probably had the best, a 100-watt increase in 2-minute power, I still wasn't.
Yeah, so you start focusing on shaping your fitness toward the time trial, and then maybe address your cross skills, which you can have a little bit of both worlds there.
Yep.
Get a little faster on the cross bike due to skill improvement, and then start working on what's really important to you, which is excelling in the time trial, which is months out.
Yep. So now I'm going to go to the sprint view.
Nice.
And what this does is I'm not a sprinter. But it shows
2,000 watts begs to differ, sir.
Oh, you know what? I need to actually I'll show you something about that. So that 2,000 watts is not a real sprint.
Ooh.
So if I click on that, I'm going to go into Grinduro, and this is going to take a second to process it, so we're not going to see it live. But I had a bad data point, and I can hit clear and edit and remove this from my personal records. And now once the server reprocesses it, it won't show up again on this chart.
Gotcha.
It'll take a couple of minutes for that to happen.
You're right.
But if I come back here
Shoot, I tried to give you credit for it. Sorry.
Yeah. But the idea is I can just come through here and see how my sprint's improving. And now I've seen it per second. It's up to 30 seconds. It's a really clear look to see what you're doing.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
Sometime I'll try to sprint.
And honestly, that sort of stuff matters. If you're a person that really cares about the sprint and you need that sort of kick and you really need to understand I mean, there are people that can sprint extremely well for 5 seconds, that can sprint extremely well for 30 seconds.
And there's a lot of information to be gleaned when you look at how your power degrades over really short spans. Over a 5-second span as a sprinter, that's a crucial duration.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even, and this is going to get contextual to what's going on right now, but just watching in the Giro, just a few days ago, Elia Viviani and that sprint where they had in Eilat in Israel when they went just into a block headwind, he waited. He was and then he probably knows with such granularity exactly how long he is best, right? So then that's where he's going to look at utilizing it. So for sprinting, it's invaluable.
That's a huge point because they call people like, like long, is it diesel sprinters or like distance? I don't know what the word
totally.
is.
Yeah, I mean, some riders have punch, some riders have sustainability. It all depends how they generate their speed, how they sustain it, or whether they sustain it.
Yeah,
I know I'm better at 30-second sprints than a 10-second sprint. I just don't have the power to generate that. So like you said, in our crits, I'm going from way farther out.
Yep.
And two, I think for road racers, like category racers like we are, age groupers, sprinting is the number one way to win races.
Yeah,
like it's really
like a lot with a good sprint.
Tends to be,
because if you're a group of 4 people and you can sprint a little bit better, you don't have to be a pure sprinter,
right?
But just being able to sprint,
having a kick,
it opens up so many more doors to you.
It does. It makes things a lot more interesting.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So now I'm going to go into current season.
Okay.
I'm going to share with you my favorite feature of performance analytics. So I've selected mountain bike 2018 and mountain bike 2017, and you can see here how I'm actually better on everything but the really short stuff for 2018, which is great.
Yes, that's what you want to see.
That's what you want to see, but that's not always the case, and it's still early in the year. So what we created is we created something called Season Match, and the idea behind this is we want to see an apples-to-apples comparison between this season and last season. So what it does is there's this button right here that says Season Match, and right now it says 19 weeks. And it knows that for mountain bike 2018, whatever your current season is, your most recent season, that I'm 19 weeks into it. And then what that does is it takes all the personal records for mountain bike 2017 for the first 19 weeks and applies it to the graph.
Yeah.
So this, like, if you're any kind of racer, it's amazing because let's say for your road race, or let's say you're a triathlete, you got all your PRs at an Ironman, right? Yeah. And you're not going to see those PRs again until your next Ironman.
Yeah.
So this chart, you'd be like, that's not very helpful because I'm not going to see that.
You feel like you're slow until your next race.
Yes, but what you can do is 4 weeks into your season, you turn on Season Match, and you'll compare the first 4 weeks of one season to the first 4 weeks of another season.
It's an apples-to-apples comparison.
And it doesn't need to be year over year. This could be the beginning of road race season at the beginning of the year versus cross season at the end of the year.
Right.
Because we've talked about this before with double peaks, right?
Yep.
Like you start a new, you peak once, you have a little bit of recovery, start a new season. Now, how am I at the beginning of this new build compared to my initial build in the year?
Yeah. And here's the interesting thing about this. So like with the current graph that we're looking at now, it shows that you're getting that you're faster, right? However, your current season hasn't reached its terminus at all. So like, but if you look at that, you're saying, yeah, I'm faster. It's perhaps not huge in certain areas. But then when you select Season Match, then you start to see that, oh, wow, so I'm actually much higher up than I thought.
Right.
Because relative to where I was last year in my plan and the same exact progression in terms of the time frame, I'm actually way further ahead. So you can expect to even raise that even higher by the end of your trainings.
And last year at this time, I believe that's when Chad said, I will never beat him.
Yeah, it's a definite.
Those absolutely
something happened.
Something happened, right?
Yeah.
So if you look at these increases, right, like 100-watt increase for my 10-minute power at this point at the time last year.
That's massive.
Also last year, though, I broke my collarbone.
Oh, yeah,
Remember
that's
that?
True. Yep. Yeah,
but
that's true.
The other thing that you can see in here is, but I mean, if I turn off Season Match, you can still see I'm ahead, which is nice. The other thing that you could use this for is if you do have, let's say you could be deficient, right? I could be deficient in my 3-minute, or like 1 to 3 minute power, like this early on. And you just have to take that in context. Maybe you haven't done any 1 to 3 minute efforts, so you don't want to do it. Or maybe you have been doing 1 to 3 minute efforts and it's something you need to work on more if it's your...
Or differently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like if it's the type of racing you want to do.
Yeah.
And some interesting stuff that you could see is you might even though it may not be the exact same thing, let's say that you want to compare your Ironman training to your mountain bike training, and you want to see, compared to where I was at, how my fitness profile is just different. And you can use that much more specifically with Season Match, because you can see what it's doing to your training or your fitness along the way. And what that can do is deliver some just neat sort of stuff, but at the same time, it can also inform you as to say, okay, my body actually does adapt to this training. Like for me, for example, with triathlon, I think or not triathlon, time trialing, no triathlon yet. But with time trialing, in my mind beforehand, I'm like, my body just doesn't respond to that sort of training. I don't do that steady state stuff well. And now with this, I can see that, actually my body does respond to this sort of training. So like, it's really helpful to be able to compare what you perhaps have considered to be how your body has always done things, and then you can see with different training.
Your perception with reality.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right.
It's helpful.
They often aren't the same.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Another thing you can do is if you go into seasons, there are other cool ways you can use seasons, and you're going to figure out other ways that we haven't thought of. One way is stage races. You can do a season for just your stage race, and you get two benefits. One, you can see if you got any new PRs during that, but also if you compare that, if you put like a season for a stage race on here and you mouse over, you can see as I mouse over things, the name of the workout changes, and you can see like, did I drop off a whole bunch? Like, are all my PRs from the first stage? Like, how am I doing, between different ones?
And something interesting with that, like with stage racing, for example, is let's say that you're going to do, let's just call it Redlands, right? So you're going to do a 4-day stage race. And if you're going to be going through and doing that 4-day stage race, and you can compare it to another 4-day stage race, maybe even the same one. But if you have that, then you can see really perhaps like if you anticipate that you start to drop off after day 2 of a stage race and that you're not doing well, you could utilize the seasons for that.
Yep.
Yeah. Do you mind if I jump to another utilization of seasons?
Please do.
I'm thinking of like Courtney McFadden. She was the pro cyclocross racer that was on the podcast with us at Cyclocross Nationals this year. And she has had a hip surgery the year before and then a hip surgery this year. It would be great for her to be able to create seasons from during those hip surgeries and her recoveries. So then she could see my recovery. Am I ahead in terms of my recovery this time compared to last time?
Yeah.
It's really helpful coming back from injury. You can use it for a bunch of different ways.
Yeah. So let's now drill into it. So you can see as I mouse over this, all the names change. And I'm going to go into my 10-minute power.
Awesome.
And now I have 3 choices. I can link right to the workout, either one of these workouts, or I can click view details. And if I go into that, it gives me a better view of what those rides were. But I can also see weekly. And weekly is really cool because weekly shows like when you got the power PRs during your season. So it says week 1 of mountain bike 2018. My map test, I got 352. And then on Antelope, I did 284. But as I go down here, you can see when I got these PRs. So on Mark Pro Team, I did 389 for 10 minutes. And if I scroll down here all the way here, on week 33, I got 327.
So you weren't even close to that. You can see that you're getting your PRs earlier on throughout your season. You can see wherever you got a 10-minute PR, it's all laid out for each season there. It's pretty cool.
And you can also see in here, I progressed pretty well. Like, it's not a huge increase, but still 13 watts over about 6 weeks. That's not bad at all.
Yeah.
And if you click on all time, this I can go back to your very beginning, my very first test in 2011, a 203.
Nice.
203 for 10 minutes.
Hey.
Yes.
Got to start somewhere.
Yep.
Right?
Got to start somewhere. Everyone does. Yep. And then as you go up, you can, see this. What this shows is every time you got a new 10-minute power PR, you can link to the test, and it shows you what season you got it in.
And for certain types of athletes, they really prioritize a certain duration, right? Like you'll see that they really focus on their 20-minute power, or they really focus on something else. Like
15-second, 10-second power for sprinters.
Yep. So you can really look into this and see your entire history right there from one view on 10-second power, or whatever the duration is. It's super cool. I love that feature.
Cool.
Okay, now let's go on the ride page.
Okay.
Jonathan, you want to describe what we did last night?
Yeah. So So we are, well, for those that don't know and don't tune into the podcast, we are doing, we're all prepping, all three of us are prepping, and more people in the office too, of course, for the state championship 40K TT time trial. And last night we had something that was absolutely not a pan flat 40K TT like we'll face on race day. It was a hill climb and a substantial one. It's actually the one that Greg LeMond used as kind of his check mark test before he would do Grand Tours, anything else like that. Sub 30 meant he was fit, which is crazy to me. And then sub 27, or somewhere around 27, I guess, is where his record is. It's so it's mythical as such.
Right? Yeah. Which
knows?
is realistic considering what the man's done, what his VO2 max is, his capabilities have
Certainly.
shown to be.
Yeah, I think that the current record on Strava at least is around 28:42, but it's somewhere around a 7 to 8 mile time trial, I believe, and you climb about 2,000 feet and it averages 5%. It's pretty consistent. There are small undulations in there, but it's relatively consistent with one large, I should say, undulation where it actually dips a little bit downhill flat for a bit, then comes back up. So all of us did it, and we expected to be somewhere around 30 to 40 minutes. Anything else you want me to share? Oh, we did road
Not
bikes.
30 to 40 minutes.
It's pretty somewhere in between there.
35
Closer
to 40.
to 40 minutes, yeah.
And not that this really matters for the data comparison, but just for insight, we did not use TT bikes on this one. You'd have to have a pretty light TT bike, I think, to be able to get an advantage there. And so we used our road bikes, then we used skin suits and Aero Road helmets, some other stuff. So let's get into the actual data behind it, though.
Cool. So I'm going to give you an overview quickly of the ride page, and then we'll like analyze what we did last night, and that'll actually show you what it is. So what we did is, one, you can now, we graph your power, cadence, and also heart rate and elevation if it's there. The data is over here on the right side, and then you can select things. And as you select things, actually, while I drag this, the numbers get updated.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah. A lot of software engineering. By the way, when I looked at, for the personal record stuff and the season match, software engineers, you can appreciate there's like 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 data points, and you have to compare each one of those to every single ride you have over all these time. We did some cool stuff to make it so that it happens in like 200 milliseconds.
So it's quickly. Yeah. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Our engineers are legit.
Yes,
they are legit.
Mm-hmm.
So what you can do is, this isn't the best ride to show it, but a cool thing is you can select something, and then you can zoom in, and then you can fine-tune it even more. And on top of that, and we'll show this more, you can then add an interval and call it, I'm just going to call it something for right now. Cool. And then what that does is that creates a new lap inside of your data. And the reason why we did that is you can't always hit lap, or you don't know the interesting parts of your data until later.
Yep.
So, you can also see how this ride compared to other personal records. So I'm going to clear Mountain Bike 2017 out of here. You can see here that the ride is red, and I have my Mountain Bike 2018 season selected. And you can see how much lower this ride was compared to other rides.
You did not get any PRs last night.
I did not get any PRs. You can see time and zones. And here you can select it and see how much time you spent in each zone. And then with the power...
Which I find really quick. That one I find super helpful for people that... Because I feel like a lot of these things you've probably seen them but don't know how to use them. Hopefully we've explained how to understand training stress and then PRs now. But the power or time and zones that you spend like that, I find that really helpful when you're looking especially at like variable efforts, like races that are like mountain bike races or cross races.
How long you can settle there.
Yeah, like in some cases in a crit, I actually might want to see a ton of time in active recovery if I'm trying to race it intelligently, right? Versus, different efforts. So that's how you can really utilize that and understand it. You shouldn't always just look for the most time in the highest zone, but it should be strategic as to the outcome and how you should have paced or anything else.
More to your point, we have a follow-on feature for this, and hopefully it'll come out in the next... I can't promise anything because we might need to reprocess stuff. But we want to have one more zone here that's called coasting. So active recovery only go down to 1 because just like we brought this up last podcast with the Merckx TT about how much time you spent coasting. And the Cliff Bar guys and crits, it is a badge of honor to be able to coast the most, but still stay in the peloton.
Yeah,
right?
And Pete coasted in a TT that was like variable. He coasted 5 minutes, and the closest we got was like a minute and a half, minute 47 seconds.
And he put 20 seconds on it.
It's amazing. Yeah, absolutely.
So that's like a really important metric, and we'll get this updated so that shows that. We don't make the map front and center. So this is a big thing that we've done that it's different than everybody else is that we have the power front and center, and the map is inconsequential from our point of view. All of us still use Strava, and it's great to see segment stuff.
Totally.
But from the TrainerRoad analytics standpoint, the graph is there. But you can still, as you mouse over it, you can see the graph updates.
And really what I use the map for is just simply context.
Yep.
You know, like when I'm looking at the graph and I want to say, okay, that looks like this climb, I'll go down to verify that that's where it is. It is backwards from a lot of people expect, but think about it. When you're doing effective training, you aren't saying I'm going to go from this latitude and longitude to this one, or you're going to go from this point to this point. You know that you have a duration and you need to maintain a certain power target. So once again, this is just us putting first things first in terms of what makes you faster. Then the cool part is, I guess you still have the map down below. So
it's complementary information. It's nothing that's going to shape your training exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you still need it for context.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally.
And we have notes down here, and then you can you can quickly link here or up at the top to your workout on Strava or Garmin. And then here is that little help that Jonathan talked about to how to do this page.
Totally.
So that's the overview.
You can enter ride notes down there too.
Yeah.
Important stuff.
Let's analyze this workout. So I did a 37:47, just about. We'll get over your times. We'll go through each of ours individually. This was hard.
Very.
I started quote unquote conservatively, and then I just got worse and worse. And so let's look at this. And I'm going to glean some insights from here. And I did this morning, and I think it really opened up my eyes.
Cool.
So if I look at this workout, you can see it starts right around threshold, and then it just goes down and down and down. And then someone was trying to beat me at the end, and I did some anaerobic power at the end. So if I
that also tells me, 1 second really quick, that tells me that you obviously you didn't pace as well as you should have, but that tells me that you still had something in the tank.
I did.
You could have released there earlier.
Yeah. So let's look at the first 13 minutes-ish. So I'm going to say at interval first 13 minutes. And if I create that one, you can see my normalized power for that is 324, which is, that's kind of, I wanted to do that for the beginning. It was 325 around there, stick at that. And then my plan was to go up from there.
Yeah, that was a conservative number.
Yep.
Which you felt to be conservative.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Chad.
Nice correction, Chad.
And
nice
now,
zinger there.
if I drag from the end to see from there to that point, my normalized power for the rest of the race was 301. That's huge, right, Chad? That's a big drop.
That is not called a negative split.
Yeah, it's exactly what you don't want to do. But when you pace based on expectations rather than actual perception or reality, how you're feeling, things change.
Yeah.
We did do the Sagan Fondo, and even warming up, I thought it was.
I think all of us are still a little flat.
But there's more than that. So let's zoom in, and this is where the cool part is when you see these little drops in cadence. Each one of those means I got out of the saddle.
You got out of the saddle a lot.
Yep. And what this climb does is at the beginning, there's little slight kicks, right? And what I did is I kind of stayed in the same gear and got out of the saddle.
They're like 8%ers. Like you're settling in around 4 to 6%, and then suddenly it just tips up to 8 or so. Yeah.
And ideally, you don't escalate your power when you get out of the saddle. And initially, there's going to be a surge. There's going to be a change when you change body position, but that should quell really quickly.
Yep.
Staying on top of the power and trying to maintain the same cadence, well, you're not shifting. So you must have been, what exactly were you changing when you would jump up?
Were you shifting gears?
Oh, I must have been shifting some kind of gears. But my power went up.
Yeah, so the fact is you elevated power over what should be or ideally is a steady state effort, and it came at a bit of a detriment.
Yeah. And so when I look at this, let's just look at this little one right here. If I select it, my average power for this was 363 for 15 seconds.
That's not.
And then what happened immediately after?
Right after another one, 382 for 15 seconds, 375.
It's a bit long, probably.
Right? Like this one is, see, I can edit it. I've selected it wrong, but I can edit it. 367 for 10 seconds.
Yeah, which for you, I mean, we say it's a bit wrong or it's poor pacing or something, but that can work for some riders, which is why when you dive into something like this, you can see, did that actually further my performance or did it hinder it?
Yeah, great point.
And this one is 358 for 12 seconds. So I did that over and over and over again.
Meanwhile, your training has been steady state training.
I know, right? And then after this one right here, I just lost it. This is the last one that I did. Let's zoom in here to get a better.
I think I remember that moment. It was like a smoke signal up the road. I could tell.
Thanks, guys. it got super crazy.
Yep, you can see, and it's interesting.
Really erratic. I mean, and we expect fatigue to kick in toward the end of a TT effort, but he's a little too far all over the place for my liking.
But even the next 7 minutes after that. So remember, I did 325. Just the 7 minutes immediately after that, 300.
Yeah.
So it's not like tailing off. Not like I slowly went down. It was an explosion.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that I
Big
think
drop.
totally my problem is I would downshift twice, get out of the saddle to go over these things. Wouldn't look at my power meter. It was early. It felt good, but I did it. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times at 370 for
much.
10 to 15 seconds.
Yeah.
That's just too much.
That's called over-unders right there.
Well,
Aggressive over-unders.
Extremely over-unders, right? The other thing looking at this that I messed up on is if I look down at my VO2 max time at that, I spent 6 minutes over 347 on a 37-minute climb.
Wow.
That is I should not do that.
Right.
Right? That's
Probably
way too
not.
much time over that. If I was going to pace it better, I wouldn't have done that.
So this is an interesting look because we're looking at a very steady state effort. So we kind of have like a strict bar that you can look at. But that said, you'll find yourself with rides that are more variable at times. And when you find one that's more variable, you can glean just as much insight.
Yeah.
Like, you look into something and you see that, okay, in this section of the course, or I can see that, I had this many climbs that were this long or these many, this many pulls or hard efforts. And you can see the direct implications of what that then did to your performance right after that. It's something that I feel like a lot of the time what we do is we just look at the map, we look at our overall numbers, and then we say, okay, cool, ride analyzed. And it's not that you need to spend a ton of time, but you'll get because everything's just right here in front of you, it'll become really efficient.
It's really quick cause and effect analysis. You can see what impacted that particular 5, 10, 15 seconds have on the next full minute.
And in this case, Nate might not adjust his training as much off this ride as much as his execution.
Yeah.
And he'll understand that in this case, I really need to improve my execution. I don't necessarily need to change my training as much because over-under style efforts aren't what you'll be doing on race
so
day.
maybe he actually stares at his power meter when he gets out of the saddle, or maybe he practices indoors being really seamless in his transitions to and from the saddle such that it doesn't affect his power as massively as, not massively, but as excessively as it does here.
I think I could have not shift down twice, shift down
Just a
maybe once,
tick,
or just not shift down and try to maintain the cadence. Probably one shift and do a lower cadence.
Yeah,
I
could practice that.
That's how I do it. But exactly. I mean, you could experiment with that very thing. 2 ticks and in a vastly different cadence, 1 tick and a slightly different cadence.
Yeah.
No ticks and
I'd argue it's hard to It's hard to see your power meter when you're out of the saddle. So I could do 1 tick and then come back to performance analytics and look at it and see if I 1 tick down and my cadence goes down, is that too big of a spike
that
still?
would be my recommendation.
Yeah.
Learn to recognize what it feels like rather than rely on that data.
Yeah.
I'd go a step further. Since you're doing a time trial, that very much you will remain seated on your TT bike, I hope, when you're in the aero bars.
Even
you
better.
guys see me out of the saddle? Something problem.
on the aero bars. But in that case, I got out of the saddle once, and I slapped my hand thereafter because I did that, and I said, whoa, your power went up. What are you doing?
Costly.
Yeah, and I just thought, you don't need to get out of the saddle. You just need to be consistent and just stay in the saddle. So... Yeah, it's something that, learning from this, and it's really cool because you can very clearly see where you got out of the saddle in this one. It's super helpful. So.
This little dip, too, was a downhill section. But I did bad. It wasn't smart.
So you could have done better. I don't think you did bad. You still had a good time.
I do these mistakes for the benefit of our users.
Of course, yeah.
Right?
Of course, yeah.
Is that what's going on?
Yeah, you're a martyr. Gotcha.
So now if I... Okay, thanks, guys. If I scroll down here, I'm going to look at my best power.
Yeah.
So I look at my PRs, and it just so happens... one thing that's cool is as you hover over this, it highlights where the PR was on your graph, which is really super cool. So if I go to 30 seconds or 30 minutes here and click on this, it has an interval selected, but I can also see where did I get my best 30-minute power. So I click on that, and it brings up the next page. And this is for a ride I did, actually the exact same climb. The part I like that we did on this is it highlights where your 30-minute power was right away.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So I can see it. And if I zoom in here, I also got in and out of the saddle a lot. But if I'm going to take the first 12 minutes or so, and I averaged 342 normalized, and I take the end, This is actually the end of it. 332. Let me zoom out and do the whole climb to make it more realistic. I'm going to go like this. I like to kind of select a little bit over and then zoom in.
And then you can fine tune from there.
Yep.
It's a good
fine tune
tip.
to say here's the end and here's the end. So the whole climb I did 335. And let's say I'll go to the first 12 minutes or so. 336 was for the first 12. And then at the end, 335. Like the last
good.
3 quarters.
That's pretty good.
So that's much, much better pacing. I still got out of the saddle, but I didn't have those huge surges that I had before.
Right.
And it was during this big ride.
Yeah.
Right? So this was in February, Chad. Same bike, same power meter.
Yeah.
I did what was it, 30 more watts or something?
Yeah.
That's not a good sign.
What were you doing more of in February?
Thanks, Jonathan. You teed me up.
There we are.
Let's go back to the career page. And I'm going to change this back to 1 year. And in February, this is when I did the ride, actually like right, I think it was in January actually. It was right in this area right here. But what I had is a whole bunch of these green indoor trainer workouts. And now what you've seen here, I had these 2 good weeks, but they're actually low weeks.
Yep.
I've had a whole bunch of outside riding.
Yeah.
I think everyone does that, even TrainerRoad people. And
Of course, we all do. Yeah.
I was in Hawaii, and you see that where I didn't really have a trainer right inside. But it's interesting. And Chad, have you seen this too, where training stress doesn't paint the whole picture? Like you can have the same training stress for outside rides, but it doesn't mean you're necessarily going to be faster if I like hit my 400 without structure.
Yeah, because I mean you can accumulate training stress in so many different ways, and then the impact it has on your body and your trajectory, your rate of adaptation, and how much recovery it requires. Are you shortchanging yourself on recovery because you're just looking at the training stress and not accounting for how destructive or demanding that particular form of stress was? It does not paint the whole picture. Yeah,
we commonly say that not all training stress is created equal, and
it's not.
And this is the cool thing, is that you can see not only whether it was indoor or outdoor, but then you can click through and you can see exactly what created that TSS.
Yeah.
So then
why
you can really
did
understand.
600 TSS work for me, or training stress work for me this week, but a couple weeks later it buried me? What's going on?
And these are the weeks leading up to my big increase, and it's all the lots of indoor training. So what I think works well for me actually is like 5 days indoors and then 1 day outdoors, and have that 1 day be a good 3-hour hard ride.
Yeah, for sure.
Like not race pace, but just like this is a solid ride.
Yeah.
Take a recovery day, just do the whole thing over again, and have that big ride though be at the end of my week where I've already got the structure in. And you know what I mean? And I just get a little more endurance, and I don't do 3-hour rides inside for a long time.
Yeah.
Just playing a little faster, a little looser.
And these are the insights you glean from looking at your data.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is that you, the person watching this right now, you may look at this and see totally different takeaways. And that's the really cool thing, is that now instead of just, we get that question all the time on the podcast, what should I do or how should I change these things? Hopefully what this will do is this will help you understand it a little bit more too. With the guidelines that we give and the context that we give constantly through the podcast and everything else, now you have the tools to be able to actually look into it and understand it. So it's pretty cool stuff.
Whose ride would you like to look at next?
We can look at mine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, your ride's private.
Oh, man, I need to change that. Let me change that around then.
Okay,
let's look at Chad's then.
Just looking at mine.
Chad's private too.
What?
You guys are both private.
Why would? Is it because we're impersonating you?
Yeah, that very much, that may be it.
Yeah, my rides aren't private.
So I think that with ours, it might be tricky to do it since we're looking at your account. And then, it might be tricky to do it. So the interesting thing is when you look at my ride and how we have it from yesterday, that it's the difference that you see as far as in the pacing is pronounced between you and I. It's consistent across the board. In fact, can you look at your ride again and see what the difference between normalized power and average power was over the whole effort?
Take a look at mine now and see if it's still private. Cool. Because I logged in and out.
By the way, your privacy settings, they do work. They are under your profile. If you click on account, you can make your whole career private or public. So then if I go in here, normalized power, it was close, 309 versus 307.
That's pretty darn close. That's good. Yeah.
Even still though. So that's another, you might think that I paced extremely well, but if I looked into it to where I exploded, I did not pace extremely well.
Right.
And normalized power didn't really pick that up because it wasn't enough, but it was enough for me.
Can you get into my file now or my ride?
Nope.
Still
Yeah.
no.
Will you log in as you? Make me admin.
Yep, I will. So one other thing, Nate, maybe that you can show when we go through this when we look at the efforts that you have. So Chad's going to have heart rate data on there, but as far as the metrics, like the ones that we have on the side here, that was whittled down too. And if you could go through and just explain like why we included those ones, like it, and why we excluded perhaps other ones in that set, then I'll pull up the rest here.
Yeah. So obviously we did duration, and one thing we did about duration is duration and moving time. We call it duration because sometimes you will have what we noticed is you'll have a file and you'll be racing like in the woods and you'll lose satellite connectivity. And that's not necessarily, quote, moving time, but the file keeps getting power data, right?
Yes.
So what we would see is a mountain bike ride with the moving time be really short.
Yeah.
I happened to one of my races. Let's say it was an hour and 10-minute race, but the moving time would be 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And that would look like on other platforms. What we did is we created a new thing called duration, and we added if you're recording power, we're consider you're working out like you're riding at the same time, even if we lose satellite connection.
Right.
So you combine those two, and that is now called duration.
Yeah.
And then total time, that's the total time the timer was going. And if you hover, you can see that. We have normalized power, average power, and max power, heart rate. I only wear a heart rate strap inside. Outside, it kind of messes with me. Average and max cadence, average and max speed, the training stress, the intensity factor, the kilojoules or calories, the distance, the elevation gained. And if you hover over that, you see the min and max, and then the average gradient. And then also, you can, whatever you select, all of this data comes up, even the average gradient, which is pretty cool. So you can look at like this little section here where I dropped. You can see there was a -1 average gradient.
Yep, absolutely. You should be able to, if you refresh now, you should be able to see my rides. So, so with this one, the interesting thing that you'll see. So in this case, I actually have. So this is a really helpful way to be able to zoom in and create an interval. So in this case, I've already created an interval for this ride, but you can see that it's really, I have the whole entire ride done, and from warm up to cool down, but then I just have the TT within there. And I've already created a custom interval. The cool thing, you can scroll down there in the interval table, and you'll see there's a Geiger TT interval. It will just zoom you in directly on it.
Yep.
So that's really helpful. So when I go back, I can just analyze that. And then when I do this again, I can then have the same thing, and I can start to get, apples to apples, so to speak, on that.
One thing we see on here is I am seeing a bug right now is that the scale on this axis is too big because he didn't hit anything big, and we'll get that fixed. I've seen this before, and as soon as I walk out of here, I'm going to tell our product manager to fix this today. So we'll get that fixed. But it is a little squished, but let's zoom into even more somewhere.
Yeah.
You still look like beautiful compared to me. Like
Thank
here,
you
your power,
very much.
your power on this kind of up only went to 310.
Yep.
Where on the whole thing, what did you average?
I averaged 283 watts.
Yeah.
And my normalized was 283 watts as well, that's a first for me. So it's the same.
That's good. And then at the end, especially better than your previous ones where you had a big
surge at the end. Yep.
Another way you could look at your pacing is if we come down to the PR chart, you can see how flat this is, right? So like his 2-minute power coming out, there's a little bit of a kick. That was actually a warm-up.
Yep.
But for the actual ones that were in your race, it is extremely flat as they come out here. And if you see a big like slide, like this big like
and
mountainside,
it was supposed to be a consistently paced thing.
Yep, that's not good.
Yep.
That's not good at all.
You should see something that's more flat.
Yeah,
so
he paced really well.
So,
thanks, Chad. I was worried because I passed Chad in the beginning. He started just ahead of me, and I was worried that I was not pacing well enough because
Chad was not having his best day.
Chad's like a metronome with pacing. It's incredible. So, so I was wondering there.
So Jonathan smoked us 35:23. You beat me by like 2 minutes 20 seconds or something.
Yeah.
More than 3.5 for me. It's
Yeah.
It was expected.
Yeah,
he's
right.
got the favorable strength to weight ratio.
Some interesting, or something else that I find interesting with this is that you see that there was one spike, and that was in one short section. And then you see that I calm right down after that. Like you said, that was the 302 section. And then I don't do that thereafter. It's not done.
I see one spike of 338 for 16 seconds, but that's the only spike that I can see on this.
Yep, and that was right when I got out of the saddle. Then I dropped back in. And then you'll even see, like in the descent, you'll see that it drops down a bit, but it doesn't creep up at the end. And that's an important thing to see is that, you know, if I really did feel like I was giving everything, but not much, right? It's not a dramatic thing.
Yeah, if you've got a hard minute or two left in you at the end of a TT, you didn't leave it all out there. Yeah,
the final minute and a half was 297, so that's really not a whole lot more than what I was at. So
another thing that you can do, which I haven't mentioned yet, is there's this other scrubber on the bottom. So if you want to look for these spikes, you can kind of just pan this thing around and go through it and just try to see more. Or you can use this to see what the data is and then zoom in and select on that. Cool. So what happens too is, let's say I only selected this amount and I zoomed in. I'm like, oh, I missed the whole thing. I can use this to kind of give me more room to select a little bit more data.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Chad, you did, what was your time? Let's see. You did do a lap.
There we are.
I don't have to create one, but look at Chad's lap. He missed it.
Just barely.
So he stopped his too late. So I'm gonna move it in.
Are we looking at mine now?
Yep. Yeah. And I'm not signing. I can't actually create your own. But if I was Chad, I would have moved this flag in a little bit and created an actual TT lap, because he probably crossed the line, bent over, huffing and puffing.
Yeah.
And you waited.
Yeah, I didn't separate away.
10 seconds, right?
Yep.
Which, how often do you do that? All the time.
And I find that usually when you hit lap, it kind of picks either second that it was on to. So when you're really talking about precision, you know, it can be tricky.
So Chad, you did 33:48.
33:48.
38:48.
Yeah,
that sounds a little better.
Yeah.
38:48.
Yeah.
Your normalized power was the exact same as mine.
Interesting.
Yeah, fascinating, right?
Yeah.
So it says something you have something working for you that I don't have working for me.
How heavy are you?
It's like 185.
Huh.
I know.
Aerodynamics.
Go
Your
figure.
aero, Nate. Your aero.
Because it can't be rolling resistance. We have basically the same wheels, same tires, probably the same pressure.
Not same tires.
Oh, we don't.
Yep. I have a wax chain.
Slight difference. I have a wax chain.
Yeah.
Okay. I have the Vittoria Corsa Speed G+, and you have the Continental 4000 GPS too.
Specialized turbos.
Oh, specialized turbos.
Which are very fast.
And those are very close.
Yeah.
What pressure were you running?
95.
I was running like 105.
Huh. It's aero, Nate.
We had the same skin suit.
Yep.
We have different helmets. We have different bikes.
You have a very aero bike. You have zero aero optimization on your bike.
Well, it's not zero.
Well,
Yeah,
it's just not designed for that at all.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. So slight differences that maybe add up.
Yeah. Yeah. You're also much narrower. You cut a narrower hole through the wind. So.
Thanks,
Did
Jonathan.
you ride low?
Yeah.
Stay low, 'cause I
a
set
little
up.
bit, yeah, but not a whole ton.
Yeah, go figure.
Interesting stuff.
And we actually had like the same wheels too.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's so many similarities that it's perplexing me.
Yeah.
I have more
Interesting
hair.
stuff. I work harder for less speed. What is up with that?
Yeah, that's not fair.
You should. Hopefully that happens in the 40K TT. Or maybe this is what it is. You guys really did mess with my power meter, and I'm putting out just as much power, because another interesting thing is about the conditions last night is even though I did the 20 or 30 less watts than my PR, I was only 10 seconds slower.
Yeah, there you go.
So
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
So maybe my power meter's messed up. I hope so.
Yeah.
That's everyone's excuse, right? That's like your fifth level excuse. Power meter's just wrong.
So is there anything else you want to share here before we get into questions?
No, I think we're all good.
Okay, there are a ton of questions I've seen. Let's see here. I'm gonna go through. I'll go through YouTube, and then if you want to go through Facebook.
Okay. Chad's pouring me some more.
Twist my arm.
So let's see here. Okay. Huang Ho says, did you ever think about adding a calendar feature? It'd be very useful to be able to add my A, B, and C events to a calendar and program my season accordingly.
Oh, yes.
We've thought about it.
For us,
not only have we thought about it.
in order for us to get a calendar, we needed to bring in outside rides, because a calendar doesn't make a lot of sense if you, Chad Smiley is pouring that, if you don't have your whole complete picture.
Totally.
So it is being worked on now by a team. And we're going to try to get it out as fast as possible. I don't like to say any dates, but it is
we want it as much as you do.
Yeah, it's the next priority.
And the one thing I want to add as far as our tendencies is we like to we want to do things right rather than like rush it out. And then, as you can see, like with these analytics, it's taking a lot of time and focus. So, cool. Mark says, this allows me to take rest seriously because I can see the big picture. I can see where I'm strongest with rest and how lack of rest works against me. Nice work, guys. Cool. Caleb asks, any thoughts in planning TSS or training stress in the future? I do this just as like an offline thing on my own to plan for target events, and it's helpful.
Oh, man, we're getting into calendar. But
yeah.
Yes. So you'll be able to, on the calendar, you'll be able to schedule TrainerRoad workouts or like an ad hoc workout where you just say, I'm going to do, this much TSS on this day and mark things as races and peak and all that kind of cool stuff.
A few folks are asking about running and swimming and adding those workouts in and wishing that it was in there more than anything else. Can we comment, on how we plan on adding in running or swimming?
No, it's too far out.
It's tricky.
Yeah, things could change, so I don't want to say anything official right now.
Mm-hmm. Let's see.
Jared says, how is it calculating training stress for the other? So all of those rides have power meters. So if you have a power meter, it'll calculate it. Mm-hmm. If you don't have a power meter, that's where it'll prompt you to estimate that ride, and then you will see it in the TSS. Mm-hmm. So even if you only use virtual power, or let's say like a kicker inside, you can estimate your training stress outside to see a big picture of it, but you're not going to get your outside PRs. Mm-hmm. But I would argue you still get a lot of benefit because if you get to track your indoor PRs for like how long you can do intervals, that is really like that's the impetus to getting outside PRs is doing longer, like doing more and more work.
Yep.
Either
exactly
higher wattage or longer intervals. Mm-hmm. And if you're getting PRs in either one of those sense, you will get outside PRs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Another question that we have is, can we expect workout notes to ever get uploaded to Garmin Connect? Currently having to enter my notes twice every time, so in TrainerRoad and then in that.
I don't know if the API allows that. Let me.
In Strava, I know it does, because my workout notes transfer right over.
I'll have to look into that.
Yeah. Let's see.
Actual time off they need.
Yeah.
So you can't just say I need a TSB of like 40 or something. The idea is like trial and error. And I find it's actually better of what set of workouts do I do leading up to that week that makes me peak the best rather than what is my actual TSB. Because as we said before, it's like this huge mix of what your how much structured work you're doing versus outdoor work and stuff like that. Yeah. It's not as simple as that chart makes it seem.
Just having a data point doesn't mean that you're being more specific.
You could do 500 TSS of endurance riding, just long, slow distance, and then 500 TSS of high intensity intervals, and they're going to leave you in different places.
Totally will.
Yeah, right. But that wouldn't show it if we were to implement something like that.
Yes.
And
correct.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Teju, I hope that's how you say the name. How would you recommend using seasons if you don't have racing seasons? We talked about the injury thing before, but if you don't have races, but you're the type of person that's just planning on staying fit, I would suggest tying that into the training phases that you're doing. So you could have, for example, a 12-week base phase, and then you have thereafter an 8-week build phase, 8-week specialty phase, and you could separate those. Then you can see, during this base phase, I'm actually ahead of where I was in the previous one.
Good point.
That sort of a thing. Or if you're just the type of person that's less consistent with your training, but you want to understand it, or less structured, I guess you could say. In that case, what you can do is you can compare years or months, and you can just divide it up in that way. That's the cool thing about seasons is it's really customizable to whatever you want to do with it. It isn't just revolving around racing with that. So let's see.
Mark asks, are we pulling in the today's workout from Training Peaks? We are for Training Peaks. We're only pushing workouts to them right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Should season start on a Monday as weeks do, or on a Tuesday as most training plans have an off day on a Monday?
Doesn't matter.
Yep, totally up to you. Really, the way that I would look at it is the season starts when you decide it starts, and if your week starts with that rest day, sure, start it then. But it really, in the end, won't affect things a whole lot because what you're really looking at is performance in terms of those seasons. So the rest days, not quite as much.
Tiffany asks, is the intensity factor calculated for each ride? It sure is. Just click on it, and it's right there on the right side of it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Jared says Nate needs a sensor in his saddle to mark when he gets up and down.
So Graham says it would be great to see how FTP has improved after each training season. You can effectively see that through using PRs and everything else. You can see how it's improving. Mm-hmm. We have another exciting thing that we're working on right now, and you can go to our beta user group or our TrainerRoad beta group, and you can look at the ramp test that we're working on there. That's something that you can do to assess your FTP more regularly. But something interesting, I think, that with this is that with PRs, it allows you to really focus in on the durations that matter for you, and you can really look at that, and so you can measure that effectively after, during each season and as the season progresses, not just once it's over. So you can do that.
Thea asks, can the performance analytics be used with indoor workouts outside of TrainerRoad? Mm-hmm. Shame on you, Thea, but yes, it can. For sure. We don't lock anybody out, so it's all there.
Perfect.
Thanks for all the kudos about this. Another thing to say is if you like this stuff, please share it. Mm-hmm. This is a shameless plug. I don't usually do this on the podcast, but please share as much as you can. The bigger we get, the more resources we have, and the faster we can implement things. So if you think that you like what we're doing, like we've got I literally have a 5-year roadmap of stuff that I think is amazing. And if we have more subscribers, we have more money, we have more engineers, and then we will build more things.
Faster turnaround.
Faster, right.
One thing I want to touch on, and I've seen a few people saying that this is like an entry-level platform to analytics or anything else like that. I really want you guys to get away from thinking that more is better and being able to slice your data up in 10,000 different ways or having more acronyms, more anything else attached to it is better. I think that you could very well argue, and I think that the case that we're arguing in this case is that more specific and less noise is better. And having something that really just shows you if you're getting faster or not. You don't need a PhD to be able to analyze, you shouldn't need one to be able to analyze your ride data, because then you're getting to the point where you're going to be getting lost in the weeds and you can get distracted by so many other things. Well, this really just is focused.
It's definitely not entry level. I think what we're doing things that no one else is doing.
It's a different approach.
Totally.
Yeah, but
it's not better. It's not worse. It's just a different approach.
It's better, Chad. There are lots of things that we
trying
do
to be diplomatic
that are much better than other people. There's what I usually when I ask for and I want you guys to say this, if there's metrics that you think we're missing, always give a use case. Mm-hmm. And I think what I've seen when I talk to people is the use case for it is usually, I'll give left-right balance as an example. The use case will be like, well, what if I broke my leg and I'm coming back? Okay, that's a great use case, and you're kind of work on that. Use a different platform for that edge case, and then you can do everything else here. There are platforms that do, 1,000 different, how I don't even know how did today's urine color affect.
For us to be all things to all people complexifies things so greatly. And distracts from what we're really after, which is just about getting faster.
So those edge cases, go to another platform while your leg's broken, you're trying to get your left-right balance, or just use your Garmin. Your Garmin says it. And then come back when that's done. But if you make it too much, it's like a Swiss Army knife. Like we're saying, we've made the best hammer, screwdriver, and saw today. And someone's like, this Swiss Army knife has like nail clippers too, and we're like, sweet, but you're if you need to clip your nail, just go use some nail clippers, right?
I always argue for the fact that the most specific approach you can take to something, and by specific I mean getting rid of unnecessary things, the better off you're going to be. It just makes things efficient. I mean, we have enough going on with all of our lives and with our training. If we can just know what really matters and focus in on that, it's really going to help us out. So. One question that I saw in here was asking if we'd be able to add in something, or if we've thought of adding in something like, for example, the ability to document life events like stress or family or anything else like that, so then you could interpret that.
Yes. So that is coming totally 100% agree, because when I looked back at my TSS chart, I just knew in my brain that some of those holes were traveling or sickness. But I guarantee you, in 3 to 4 years,
you'll have no idea.
Maybe next Thursday, maybe later today after our drinking.
This is another case for the notes, but that's an interim fix.
Yeah, but it'd be nice to see at a macro level that like this section I was sick, and that is coming to calendar. Because we think that is the best part to put that in, to say, from this time to this time I was doing this, for this time to this time I was doing this. We're making it flexible, getting way into secrets. You guys had me drinking. Ask me more questions.
Stop pouring glasses there.
There's been a couple questions about ramp tests, which isn't directly related to this, but the ramp test now, if you have an updated workout, it's not called Ramp Test X, it's just called the Ramp Test. And you can use it today inside TrainerRoad and get all the feedback. It hasn't replaced our 8-minute and 20-minute tests yet. It will, and we'll do another full explanation.
It'll replace them within the plans. The 8 and 20 will still be options.
Exactly, yep. And we're going to go deep into that very soon. But we knew that this launch was coming, and we wanted to launch this first. And we thought combining the two would be, you guys would just fall asleep. So it'll be soon, though. A couple weeks, I bet.
Yep, absolutely. I think that pretty much covers it, at least on my end over on YouTube. That more or less covers the broad scope.
I did not
of the
think we were going to go this long. I talked a lot. I'm sorry, everyone.
It's okay.
It's fun, though.
I learned a lot, too.
We really like this stuff, so if you couldn't tell.
Yes, of course. And this is something that I feel like, once again, you should spread the word. If you find that this helps you understand power better, then hopefully that can help you understand or explain to your friend why a power meter might help them, why structured training might help them. Really, like, so much of our goal is to make you faster, but not just require you to just 100% trust blindly in us, but we try to teach you through this. That's the podcast is all about, our learning resources, and this is very much it as well. We want you to be able to glean insight from what you're doing. So hopefully this is all helping you learn more about it. If you do have questions about it, you can always just go through and use our support contacts, support@trainerroad.com. There's a bunch of tool tips as well. Don't be afraid to click those. It's not going to take you off the page. It'll just give you a nice little modal that you can see right there and stay on the page so you don't lose your spot. Plenty of ways that you can figure out about this thing. We have learning resources on the site, plenty of stuff. But thank you, everybody, for joining us. We appreciate it. And if you are a podcast listener, we'll be talking to you again tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. We're looking forward to it.
Whole thing all over again. No, just kidding. We'll do a quick overview of it.
Very quick recap. Yep. So thanks, everybody. We'll see you all soon.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.